Larry, aka Seville. I want to thank everyone for tuning in every week at our weekly podcast, You Go and Pro podcast, the number one podcast in the world that helps athletes develop proficiency, assist in their passion for the game they love. Today's episode is episode 52. Our guest played for the very own Cal State University at Bakersfield. He's also the very first catcher at Bakersfield history to hold a batting average title and also on base percentage at Bakersfield. He also holds he got drafted by the MLB draft in 2011 by the very own San Diego Padres, the 16th round. He also played in the DR, had an opportunity to to actually work with Tahis Jr., Manuel Clace, Andres Moniz, and many, many more. He also had a privilege to manage the LA Dodgers low-level affiliate team where he worked with other players like Dustin May, which we know who he is, Gavin Lux, and many others. He also runs an academy in the LA area called the J Rod Baseball Academy. He helps players on and off the field to deal with life experiences and baseball as well. It's my pleasure to bring on the very own Jeremy Rodriguez. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing great, Coach. Thanks for having me.
I mean, listen, I have a whole lot more for the people that listen. I have a whole lot more to say about him, but it would take us like 6 years to get it done. So I'm not going to go through that. This guy's got a resume. Look at that stuff back in the back. He's got so many things he's accomplished in a very short period of time. I mean, it's just a privilege and an honor to have someone like you on my podcast. You know, I don't get very many Californians, because the time zone's a little different, but Jeremy, let's talk about the beginning when you first started out. Because I read your resume. You started playing baseball in California. What was it like playing high school baseball in California? Because I'm here in Miami.
Uh,
What is it like?
it's tough. I mean, you play year round. You're getting guys all over. I mean, the class that I was in, we had Garrett Cole, um, Trevor Bauer, Freddie Freedman. It was a good class. Aaron Hicks was on that team as well. And so overall California baseball, and I'm not saying it's the best out there, but
Right.
it's top level,
Oh
and
yeah.
guys are training year round. These travel ball teams are playing year round, and a lot of these players, man, they eat, breathe it.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I'm actually in South Florida, like I said before we got on the air, and I've noticed that South Florida, California, Texas is just,
Yep.
people want to debate it. They can debate all they want, but it's kind of hard, Jeremy, when you play all the time and the weather's very good. It's hard to say, I'm from Chicago and I know what it's like to be in the cold most of the year.
Yeah, you're not gonna want to do anything when it's below zero. You're gonna stay inside and put the heater on.
It's just crazy. But I was looking up your draft, and I was gonna get into this later. But since you talked about the guys, your class, you had Jarrett Cole went to UCLA, Travel Bauer went to UCLA. I didn't know Travel Bauer went to UCLA. I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
know that. And then you got Anthony Rendon, which
Oh
he
yeah.
actually went to Rice. I think he went to Rice. But this is your class, the very first round, and then you got Francisco Lindor, and you got I can't pronounce. Correct me if I butcher his name. Colton Wong, is that
Colton
correct?
Wong. Yep. Yep.
Colton Wong, and that's just one, two, three. That's only five guys in your
Hmm.
class.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, think about what was that? Elaborate, say something. Jeremy, I'm out of words. I mean, think
It,
about that.
it's it was no, it was a tough class, and I mean realistically, I was told I thought I was gonna be a Dodger in the draft room, and I was talking to them probably around 3 to 4 times a week, and I'm just like I went to Dodger Stadium, did a private workout, and I'm like okay, like I'm gonna be a Dodger, and so the scout told me probably I'd probably go into like 7 to 12 rounds. And so I was okay, like that's fine. I mean, I was a junior and I was ready to go anyways. And so like the 13th round hits and nothing, and then the 14th, I'm just like, man,
Man,
like what is going on? So when the 15th round hit, one of my good friends, his name got called, and I was like, shut it off. I don't want to listen anymore. And he's a good player, but it was just
right,
like, man,
right.
what
What's
else do I
going
have to
on?
do?
Right, right.
And so my dad's like, no, 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 just listen a little bit more. So I'm literally on my phone, just playing a video game or doing something on the couch, and then my name gets called, and it was just like, it was surreal, man. My dad jumped on me, and I think all the memories and everything that you had to go through to get to that point,
Right. Right.
it just goes through it. And you
Right.
think about, the work that you had to put, the extra work, the running, the screaming at your dad, and all this, you know what I mean? All the fighting. And that's why, when Freddie Freeman hit that walk-off home run against the Yankees, and the first thing he mentioned was his father, man, I started tearing up because it's like,
Right.
man,
Right. It's
it's real.
emotional. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a real
Yeah.
thing,
Because you went through all that to get to where you are. I
right?
mean, it's just like, okay, it's like going to boot camp and you finally going to graduate and get your badge of honor. I'm finally here, and you're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I mean, because Jeremy, I've interviewed quite a few people on the show, and some MLB players. Derek May, he got drafted too. Some similar situation. I can remember another guy I interviewed. He's in California. And same situation. They said they're gonna draft you early, and they don't draft you early. And then you
Yeah.
sit back and you look at these guys like, what? What's taking so long? But you know what? As I've done the research, and I've noticed that a lot of guys that are first rounders, second rounders, don't make it to the show. They don't, for the most part. A lot of guys like maybe a little bit lower round. Let's talk about the guy, Jeremy, the guy who played for the Dodgers, the catcher.
Will Smith.
No, not Will. This is back before, a little bit before our time. Um, Tommy Lasorda's
Oh,
godson,
Mike Piazza.
Mike
Yeah.
Piazza.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
He didn't get drafted till like, what was it like?
It was the last pick. It was the very last pick, I think, in the 40 something round.
Yeah,
It was
it
bad.
was bad.
Yep.
But he's a Hall of Famer now.
I know, and he was more of like a favor pick for Tommy. Tommy was like, hey man, can we just pick him up? And he's a big guy, and
Right,
let's see what we can do and develop. And he made himself into a Hall of Famer, not just
right,
the people he knew. It's his work ethic, his attitude.
right,
My mentor Reggie Smith, he spent a lot of time with him. He was the hitting coach in the Dodgers organization at that time, and
right,
Tommy would send him to his house and send him to the Dominican
right.
just to work with him and making sure he's doing the right, he's in the right path. And I mean, a lot of people, they can make it to the big leagues. Because once you get into professional baseball, everyone's good.
Yeah, yeah.
But
it's
there's
like
yeah,
you can't.
and then
You don't have room
they,
for error, right? Am I right,
right,
Jeremy?
right. My first spring training, man, I had 22 catchers in front of me, and I'm the smallest one. I'm like, woof, like with guys that had big league time, and it's intimidating, But I made sure I did the little things right, whether it was being the first one there, being the last one to leave, making sure, hey, anything we do, I'm the best at it, and I gotta, I had to prove myself every time
Wow.
I stepped on the field or I was behind the plate.
Jeremy, 22 catchers.
Yeah, and that's one position. So imagine like the outfield position. Imagine like the infielders, pitchers. There's 100 pitchers showing up to camp, and it's like, all right, well, this guy throws 95, this guy's 92 with sink, and it's like, how are you going to be different? And
Yeah,
that's my philosophy where I try to, ingrain these kids is like, hey, you have to find a way to be different. You got to find a way to stand out more than everyone else, because every level you go, it's going to get harder.
Harder and harder.
And you have to find a way to stand out. Like, again, I'm only 5'5", and so I'm only 5'5". So I relate well to Altuve and Pedroia
And Pug. Remember Pug?
Pudge. Yeah. So Pudge was actually my idol. That's who
Really?
I am. Yeah, he's my idol. That's who I imitated my game around him, and I was fortunate to play in front of him once, and it was kind of an honor. It was a spring training game. We were in AAA,
Wow.
and Pudge was watching Alfaro, who's been in the big leagues for a little bit. He was a catcher for the Padres that had the big, long, blonde hair,
Like
little
Shaggy.
Fabio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out there.
So he was catching he's a big prospect with the Rangers at the time. So they sent Pudge to go watch him. Well, I was catching that game too, and so obviously I was wearing Rodriguez 7. So the whole dugout, they're telling him in Spanish, "Oh, it's tu hijo, it's tu hijo." I'm just like, oh man. So I'm like literally catching. I'm like looking on like I'm just looking, seeing if he's watching me. He's just like this, looking at me, and then he walks up next to me, like 5 feet away, and he tells me, "Hey, let me see if you represent the name." And he brought a stopwatch out, and I'm like,
Oh.
This has
Oh.
been everything I worked for my whole life. This moment was the moment that I was training for, like, and and I'm praying that the pitcher just throws me a good pitch to throw down, and he did. He
Yeah,
did. He
yeah,
threw me a
yeah.
like mask high fastball,
Right,
and
right.
I
Make
threw
it,
a
make it, make
bullet.
it simple. Make it simple. Make it real
Yeah,
easy
yeah. And
for
so,
me.
and I threw a BB down the second and was right there. And he looks at me, he smiles, and he goes, "That would represent the name, kid." And he walked off, and I'm like, "What was my time?"
Yeah.
Like.
That's what I want to know. Like, what was the time?
So,
Was it a
but that
1.9, 1.8? What was it? I mean,
right. But that literally that moment, like I called my dad right away because that I felt like a little kid at Disneyland for the first time. Like that made my whole career. That moment.
wow.
And then
Wow.
fast forward, gosh, 4 years later, I was coaching AAA with the Dodgers, and Pudge was
Oh,
he was still like roving with the Rangers, and so
right.
we were in Nashville, which is their AAA affiliate.
Really, yes.
And my best friend was catching for the Rangers at the time. So he texts me, he goes, "Hey man, you ready to meet your idol?" And I was like, "No," because I could have sworn I saw him like just walking.
Right.
I was like, "No, that's not Pudge."
Right.
So he
Right.
got a meeting with me and him together. We started talking. He's like, "Hey man, you were with the Padres, huh?" And I was like, "You remember it?" "Oh yeah." And I go, "Do you remember what my time was?" He goes, "Nah, man, that was like 4 years ago." but just for him to remember that moment,
Yeah.
but that's why I'm telling you, is like, listen, like you have to find a way to stand out. And again, I stand out for my height, because I'm not passing the eye test, but it was my passion and my energy
Right.
behind the plate that caught people's attention.
I like that. I like it.
And so as you get up, through the rankings, man, there's those little things that are gonna help big time.
But basically the intangibles. You're saying the intangibles.
Right.
Because, like,
Right.
I mean, I'm 6'3", 200, 6'3". I was fast, so I ran a 6'3", 60, switch
Yeah.
hitter. And, I don't like to use the word idol. I'm going to use another word. The guy I imitated my game from. And you know who that was, right? He's an outfielder, number 25. He's in your state.
Oh yeah.
That's Barry Bonds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he came here in South Florida and coached for the Marlins for a short period of time, and I didn't make it there not one game, not one. I was sick. I was literally sick. And then the reason I say it because I coach. When you coach high school baseball, travel baseball, actually I do the similar things you do. Have my own training as well. So I'm trying to find a way to get to these games, and if I just had an opportunity just to talk to him,
Yeah.
I call him Mr. 25. He used to be 24, but now he's Mr. 25. Mr. 25. He Mr. 25. I would love to just, hey man, I just want to talk to you, just ask you some questions. I know they say he's not the nicest cat in the world. He's not he's not the friendliest, and I'm cool with that. It doesn't bother me. I can handle it.
Listen, I know Barry well. I was best friends in high school with his son. I had to show him around our high school campus. I had Mike Scioscia's kid with us too, Matt Scioscia. So, and this was right after the Angels won the World Series.
Oh.
So Barry, he comes in with Nikolai, and the first person he sees was Scioscia, and he looks at him, he goes, "Hey man, I still don't like your dad." We all started laughing. We were just, but I'm going to be honest, like I've been over his house.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember there was one time, like the first time I went over there, I was like a little intimidated. This is a huge house, and I'm like, "Oh man, is Barry going to be here?" And Barry's he's on the couch watching TV in his shorts and a tank top, and I just go, "Oh man, like you just,
Right.
you're just a regular dad, like
Right.
like." He showed me, so he has like a detached gym, and detached garage, and the gym's on top of the garage.
Oh.
And so he's like, "Jared, you want to see something cool?" I was like, "Yeah." So all the walls are mirrors.
Oh,
So
mirrors.
they're mirrors, yeah. So he pushes one of the mirrors, and the mirror comes out. And in that room, he has all his achievements. He has the record, the bats that he hit the record with. He has a ball from the 27 Yankees. He has a ball from I think it was like the 44 Giants. Like it was just like,
Wow.
oh my God, like this is unbelievable. Like so, and I tell people, because people have that same thought of Barry. He's like, "Hey man, like I heard he's not a nice guy." I'm like, "Nah, man. If you meet Barry in the right moment, you know what I mean? Not when he's working, or when he's doing like he is the best guy ever, man. He spends so much time with me just talking about hitting, talking about approach, and I'm just like, man, this guy doesn't. I'm a high school kid. He doesn't need to be doing this. Like, I remember he gave Nikolai to give me. So actually, I had Barry's jersey back there that he gave me.
Man, I can't see it. I wish I
You
could see
see?
it.
Let's see. You see it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm getting
So,
excited. I'm getting excited. Yeah.
um,
Oh
no,
man.
so I have that, and so Barry gave me his batting gloves, and these batting gloves were like custom Franklin, where he had padding all over his fingers that to
Oh,
hold the bat the right way. I was like, and
wow.
I was dumb. I shouldn't have used them, but like they were so comfortable. I was like, and so I trashed them, but still like stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
man,
Right.
Barry, he's a good idol to have.
Man, it's just I had to say that because you're from California and growing up in Chicago, watching Barry Bonds and watching these other cats, and I'm left-handed, so
Yeah,
I only throw left. I mean, but I switch hitting, and I try to emulate my game from him, And
yeah,
and when you said you're 5'5", I'm thinking, okay, how many guys in general in sports, just in sports, Jeremy, we're not talking about just baseball, sports, how difficult that is. That's a challenge.
yeah.
Because first of all, you don't pass the eye test. You're probably not the biggest guy. But to me, you know who you remind me of? I haven't even seen you play. You know who you remind me of? David in the Bible.
Yeah,
David fighting Goliath. Like, listen, I'm
yeah,
not scared of you. I'm not intimidated by you, and I'm going to knock you down.
yeah,
I'm going to knock you
yeah,
down. So you have to have that. You have to have that zeal, that resilience when you're smaller, because and God gave you that. He gave you that inner peace. Like, listen,
yeah.
no one can beat me. I don't care who you are. And some of the guys that are the smallest guys, some of the toughest guys. That's what I've learned.
And Reggie, my mentor Reggie Smith, he's an all-time Dodger great as well. And he would always, when he would describe me, it would be, it's never the size of the fight, or it's never the size of the dog in the fight. It's always the size of the fight in the dog.
That's right. That's right.
And for me, it's like, man, it goes so much just in like not just baseball, but in
Right.
life.
In life. Right.
And that's
That's right.
where I love teaching. I love giving back because a lot of these kids, man, they're so, the baseball world, man, it's very, depleting. You see these guys that are huge. You see, oh, he's
Mm-hmm.
95. Oh, he's hitting balls
Right.
home. It's like, so what?
Right. Right.
Hey, you got to find a way to beat them. You
That's
got to
right.
find a way, and if you believe in yourself, I mean, that's going to be the biggest key factor is
Mm-hmm.
the belief and understanding like, hey, man, you step in that ring,
It's different.
like,
It's
it's
just
you versus you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
You
right.
know?
When you said that, I want to ask you a question based on your high school. Being the size you are, but I think you're like 8 feet tall inside. That's just me.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're like
Oh,
8 feet tall. You're like Shaq in the inside. You're Shaq
yeah.
in the inside. And so my question to you is that you have a great mentor like your dad or some father growing up in high school?
Yeah, so my dad, he was an Olympic athlete in Cuba.
Okay.
He was on the national fencing team. That's kind of how he was able to escape Cuba. And so my dad, he was 5'9", 5'8".
Okay.
But with him, he really taught me like the passion. He taught me the work and what it really took, to
Mm.
be able to be great. And he had that Olympic mentality, which if you do it now, it probably wouldn't play well now.
Right.
But back then, it worked for me. My brother, my sisters didn't, not so much, but they were all American softball players.
Oh,
But they didn't, yeah, but they didn't need to. They just had that God given talent that they
talent.
showed up and they balled.
Oh, okay.
With me,
Okay.
I had to put that extra work in, and I really
Mm.
had to grind it out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of doubt, in this
Yeah.
game, and there's always that doubt, that you always think about. And my dad was always there to make sure, that, hey, that I was still believing in
Yeah.
myself, and that I believed I was the best.
Mm.
And then my mom, she was, one of my, best supporters, and she played in high school, and she always made sure it was just a game for me. Like, just,
Okay.
hey, just have fun.
Just have
Just,
fun.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just be you, have fun. And then sometimes get mad. I'm like, no, I went 0 for 4, mom. This is not fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
she showed, a lot of resilience, and, showed me like, the type of work to
Yeah.
succeed, and also, finding a way to
Finding a way.
survive.
Yeah, I like that.
That was a big thing that,
I like
she
that.
showed me as well.
That's great. That's right. You said finding a way. Finding a way.
Finding a way.
And people don't
Yeah.
understand what that means. Like you coach as well, and you train like I do as well. Is how what do you tell the kids to keep them focused? Because I mean, I mean, let me give you a scenario, Jeremy. I had this several kids that should play D1 ball or
Hmm.
D2. Played all this money for travel ball for
Hmm.
years, Jeremy, and a trainer and working out, and then all of a sudden they
Hmm.
just quit. I'm like, I'm like, how do you just quit? You're going to college anyway. You're going to go to college anyway, right? Why not just play somewhere? Even if you're not the starter, at least enjoy your ride while you. Am I right? So, what can you give some enlightenment words for guys that just kind of? I don't think I can play D1. That's the first thing they say, Jeremy. I don't think I can play D1, so I'm quitting. What do you say to them?
Well, I think it's just for me, it's the confidence. Like how bad do you want it? And for me, everyone asked me what did I want to do when I grew up. Like when I was little, second grade, third grade, I'm like, I want to play professional baseball. I never, and people would sometimes, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. It didn't matter. Like that was my mindset, that was my goal, and that's what I wanted. And I didn't understand the sacrifice that came in with that. But for me, it was understanding what I wanted, and that was my goal, and that's what I was looking towards. And I think what I share a lot of these kids is like, listen, no matter what coach tells you, what parent, what friend, if you want it, grab it, take it, and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but I also warn these kids, it's not easy.
Yeah.
When things get hard, and it's funny, it's like that Rocky Balboa quote, the hard is what makes it great.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you get your name called for the draft, or when you get your name called to get, you go up to the show.
Right.
That's why there's so much emotion behind it, because of how hard it was to get to that point.
Mm.
But you hear your name and you get that call, that hard is, it was worth every penny of it.
Right. Right.
And
You're
so with a lot of these kids, I think sometimes when it gets too tough, it's having that understanding, like, hey, this is a part of it, and it's okay. It's okay to feel the way you're feeling, and it's okay. And sometimes a little break is the best medicine.
right. Right.
I remember I told a kid he took a whole summer off because he was getting burnt out. I'm like, hey, just take the whole summer off,
Mm-hmm.
relax, be a
Mm-hmm.
kid, go to the lake, go to the beach, just be a
Right.
kid. He came back in the fall, man, and he was a different person. He was hungry, he was working, and his game changed. He didn't do anything all summer.
Mm.
And I was like, dude, because mentally, physically, you're rested,
Right.
and some of these travel ball, and that's why I'm not a big believer in travel ball, to be honest, because it takes the love away. It takes the families away
It
from what
does.
matters.
Mm-hmm.
COVID was my first time pretty much going on the lake. I've
Wow.
never done a lot of these things. COVID kind of made me explore a lot, and
Okay.
that's kind of, I was like, man, I really missed out on a lot because of how much baseball kind of
Mm-hmm.
took me and my family.
Right.
And I
Right.
would talk to my brothers and sisters like, hey, man, like all our travel ball, all our vacations were your tournaments. Cooperstown,
Right.
Kansas City,
Right.
Florida. Those were our family trips. And
Mm.
I was like, man, that shouldn't. That's not how it should be. So I
Right.
always, I let these families know, like, hey, you want to get in this world, this is what it's gonna be. But make time for family, make time for the kids, make time to make sure they can be themselves.
Mm.
Because if you're thinking about going to tournaments and playing in these 8 a.m. games where they got to show up at 7 a.m., like for me, that's a waste of time. No one's gonna be ready for that. No one does that. For me, that's just money. And so, and so like that, I get. Trust me, I'm a mentor, I'm a baseball coach, and I'm a therapist for these parents, just because it's not how it should be right
You're
now. And
right.
they talk about, oh, it's about developing. It's like, well, playing at 8 a.m. that's not developing. You know what I mean? Like they're not
You're
gonna wake
right.
up until 10 a.m.
You're right. You're right. I mean,
So
that's facts. I mean, that's facts because when I'm coaching travel ball, you know, I think I look at it from a different angle. But you're 100% on point. You're 100% on point because going to a game at 8 o'clock. Sometimes I got to get there earlier than 7, and
yeah,
I'm like, this is ridiculous.
yeah,
Because I'm like, first of all, half of these kids aren't even awake, and then you expect them to come out and perform at the highest level, and then
yeah,
you're mad at them because they can't perform. And
yeah.
so that's another story for another episode. We're not going to get into that because I'm like, and like you said, I mean, I do certain things for certain reasons. I mean, I do the travel ball because I want to develop kids. I
Hmm.
want to have a relationship with kids and families because I want to give them the truth.
Right,
The truth. I don't want them. They don't need facts. They need the truth because the
right,
truth should set them free. And a lot of times these parents they're living the dream through their kids. You know that.
yeah, oh yeah,
And I'm like, which you probably experienced it as well. I'm sitting there talking to a parent. I'm like, And why are you so intense? And he's not intense. You know there's something missing. You know that
Oh yeah.
Jeremy. You know there's something missing because
Oh yeah.
I know for a fact my parents like growing up in Chicago, and they're like, listen, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But if you do it, you ain't quitting. The bottom
Right.
line, you're not quitting.
Right.
You're gonna go
Right.
all in. You're gonna go all in, and that's just something. But also, which me and you can talk about. Our parents were different versus
Yeah.
today's parents.
Yeah.
You're not gonna quit. There's no quitting. You do it. You're gonna finish it because you
Yep.
represent me. My mom used to always tell me, my dad, you represent me and our family, and we don't
Yep.
have quitters in our family. Now, if you win or lose, it doesn't matter. But the point is, your goal is to try to win. You're not going to
Right.
just do it, and that's just something that I've learned as well based on what you're saying. I'm just reminiscing over some things you said about your father and how great of a mentor he was to you and your mother. She was like the totally opposite. Like, hey, babe, it's okay, you do,
Yeah.
and that's a
Yeah.
good. It's a good balance. It's a good balance. I mean, because I don't know how young are the kids coming in you. I mean, because there's kids come like 8 years old and 7 years
Oh
old,
yeah.
and I'm
Oh yeah.
like, he's still wetting the pants. So he ain't learned how to pee yet.
Oh
Why is
yeah.
he out here playing baseball? I think there's a little bit extremist. Would you? I mean, you can disagree or agree. It gets to a point, like you said, how they gonna live life? Because now they wake up and they go to school at 8 o'clock, so they got to get up early. You know that.
Oh yeah.
Either they're gonna catch the bus, or you're taking them to school, and then they're half awake. They got to eat some breakfast because most of them don't eat breakfast, and then then you got to go straight to practice. I mean, so when do they study and when do they have a life? And what would you say about something like that when you're dealing with kids like that at the early age?
So when I've spoken to parents, because I do have some 8-year-olds, I have some 9-year-olds, and they're good. They're good, and they work, man. They get after it, and I think it's with the parents, they're showing them like the preparation, they're showing them the dedication, they're showing them. And don't get me wrong, the parents do a really good job, like birthday parties, taking them to vacations, and that's something I always strive for. Hey, make sure you go on a vacation. That's not a baseball tournament. Leave the glove at home.
I
Um,
love it. I love it.
and you know what I mean, like, and so a lot of my parents do a really good job at that. I think with a lot of parents, they're trying to keep their kids busy because the worst thing that I've seen now is the video games, man.
Oh yeah.
The video games, the computer, and it's like I rather overwork these kids than them being at home in front of the computer or in front of the PS4 or Xbox. And
Yeah. You're
I
right.
was like, dude, I agree. I rather because now there's no just going outside and playing.
Correct. Correct.
There's no like, hey man, let's go shoot hoops.
Like
Hey,
we
let's go
did.
play
Like when
wiffle ball.
we were
Yeah,
kids, we just go out and play.
yeah, and there's not like that. You know what I mean? There's nothing like that anymore. So,
Mm.
I think rather than they'd rather, hey, we'll play on a rec team, we'll play on a travel team, and then we're gonna play on a football team. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Like it's
Right.
like, woo. But
Right.
it's I think it's just to keep them active and
Right.
keeping them away from home.
Correct.
So, and I see the benefit in that, but also as long as there's some space for them just to
Right.
chill and have fun and be a kid,
Right.
I'm okay with that.
You're talking about being balanced. You want to have a
Yeah.
balanced life, and that's something that we don't use that word very often. Balance, because
Right.
but when we were growing up, I didn't know any balance. I didn't
Yeah.
know any balance. I just like let's go. But like you said, I think it was different because I can go outside and go play, and not have to
Hmm.
worry about bad things happening. You
Right.
know, or some stupid. What I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh
California,
yeah.
Chicago. We don't have to go into that, but you know what I'm saying. Nowadays, kids can't go outside. They're like, you can't go out. You got
Uh-huh.
to watch your back, and it's just
Yeah.
that's no way to live. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
Coming from high school, going into college, Jeremy, I want to ask you, being recruited. How was your recruiting process coming from high school to Cal State, Bakersfield? How was that?
I mean, it was pretty good. I was talking to a lot of schools. UCLA, Fresno State, Fullerton, UCI. Bakersfield was in the mix, but in my head, Bakersfield was my last. I
You're
wasn't.
like,
Yeah, because it was a brand new program, and they haven't even started. They don't even have a field, and I'm just like, okay. But I was with the SGV Arsenal, and Mike Vieira was in that team. I mean, we had Cole, we had Hicks, we had a bunch of MLB players on that team, and he told me, he's like, hey man, Bakersfield's good. That's where you're gonna go. And I'm like, what?
What?
And I'm like, I'm talking to Irvine right now. I'm talking to Fullerton. I'm talking to UC San Diego.
Right.
And I was like, you want me, Bakersfield? And he goes, trust me, this coach is going to be perfect for you. And so I actually committed to UC San Diego.
Okay.
And it's a private school. So I had to, my grades were fine, but my SAT scores had to be pretty high. And
Okay.
it took me 3 times to get it. So finally, the third time I did it, and San Diego was like, "Oh man, we didn't think you were going to do it in time, so we gave your scholarship away."
What?
And oh yeah, because it was just a verbal commitment,
Oh,
and
okay, okay,
so
okay,
they
okay,
didn't, so it was like,
okay.
"Hey, like we just didn't know, but we want you still, and but can you walk on?" I was like, 44 grand a year, no, thank you, like, and so, but it was already too late because it was a month and a half before signing day.
Okay.
And so I'm talking to Fresno, I'm talking to all these schools. Hey, do you still need a catcher? Do you still need a catcher? Hey, we already got our guy, Jay. We already got our guy. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
Right,
I
right.
called Bakersfield up, and it was literally my last resort. And, when I say God, man, God opens doors and things happen for a reason. This was the best decision I ever made.
Wow.
And Mike Mira was spot on because I got to play every day. I got to call my own game.
Wow.
I got to put
As a
myself
freshman?
and
As a
as a freshman,
freshman?
yeah, yeah. And then
Woo.
my teammates and myself, like we put Bakersfield on the map. I mean, my junior year, we put Bakersfield in the top 30. Beating Fresno State once they were top 20.
Yeah, they were good.
We
They were
beat
good.
Garrett Cole Friday night. We got one from South Carolina. We beat ASU. Like there was a lot of big time teams that we had to take on to put our name on the map, and
Wow.
that was something special. And yeah, I mean we literally built that field.
Mm.
We put the grass on it. We built it from the ground up. And seeing where the program is now, it's something special that our coach told us like, hey man, you guys are doing something that will be never it can never be replaced and it will never be taken away from you.
Mm.
And you didn't think about it then. We're just thinking
Right,
about
right.
okay, hey, we're in college, like. But now that we're older and
Right.
we're thinking about it, it's like wow,
Wow.
like how special that what we had to really go through to make this program and put Bakersfield out there.
I like that, man. You said you just never know how. You said this. You just never know how God works in mysterious ways. Because you
Yeah,
said that was your last thing, the
yeah.
last place to ever go. But God says your first should be last and your last should be first. And then I'm going to read this based on what you just said. It says in Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." So when you said that, it clicked. I'm like, hmm. Because as many times I go through the same. I mean, I'm being honest, Jeremy. I know for sure because as many times I'm like, God, I really don't want to do this. This
Yeah.
is not a place I want to be. And hopefully the listeners that are listening get an understanding that, like I just said, I gave you that scripture, Jeremiah 20:11, for a reason.
Yeah.
Because we think our plans is the plan.
Listen, I 100% agree. And like even during COVID, I mean, I was still with the Dodgers, and I lost my mom. My mom passed away from cancer
Mm,
January that year.
okay.
So me going into that season, like mentally, I wasn't there.
Mm,
Like I didn't want to go to spring training, and the Dodgers, man, were phenomenal. Dave Roberts, Friedman, they all called me. They brought food. They took flowers to us. I mean,
that's great.
they're my favorite team, no matter if I was from LA or what, just because of what they did with my mom and my
Mm,
family. And
wow.
so when I was a part of the COVID cuts,
Okay.
right after the World Series, I lost my identity.
Yeah.
I was in professional baseball for almost 10 years,
Wow.
and it was taken away from me for something I didn't even, I had no control of, and it
Correct.
was kind of like, well, why me, why this?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going back, and I was teaching at that time because I had some freedom, during COVID, and my mom was like, hey, she always loved me coming home, and she loved me mentoring, she loved me teaching, giving lessons. And and I never understood why. It's like because she was like, always, Bobby, like you're giving back, you're helping the youth grow,
Correct.
and you're giving your story, and you're giving kids hope.
That's right. That's right.
And that for me, I was like, that's something so powerful.
That's
And
right.
that's where I tell a lot of my kids that make it on. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you just gave someone hope.
That's
someone's
right.
going to look at you and say, hey, I can be a Savannah Banana, or hey, I can play
Correct.
for the Guardians,
That's right.
or I can be a major league player, and for me, that's something extremely special. And so at that time, when I lost everything, it was like, man, what is going on? And in my head, it's like I lost everything. I
Right.
lost who I
Right.
was.
Right.
But
Right.
really, God was opening a bigger door for me. And
Correct.
now it's hard for me to even think about going back to the professional realm.
Right. Right.
I love what I
Right.
do, and
Do
it's
and
something
you
that
have
you get to
peace. You
aspire.
have peace.
Yeah.
You're at peace.
Yep.
You're at peace. I mean, God said, "I'm at peace that passes all understanding." And I mean, your testimony is great, man. Because I'm sitting there thinking about, man, a lot of guys like yourself, and I was one that played college ball as well, and got cut, and I was like you. I didn't know what to do. I went crazy.
Yeah.
I lost it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've been playing baseball all these years, and then I get cut, get in a car wreck, tore my rotator cuff up, and I'm lost. I was supposed to get drafted, and then I get in a car wreck, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like you said, and it goes back to 29 Jeremiah 29:11. That's the scripture right there that just. And I'm like, God, what's going on? You're young. I'm 20, 23, 24. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I don't know what to do
Yeah.
because our identity was in sports, and it should have been in God. And I'm just saying that
Right.
because it had to change. I mean, it was a hard pill to swallow. You got to.
Oh yeah.
I don't come from a rich family, so I'm
Yeah.
like, well, what am I going to do? I don't know anything, so I can relate to your testimony because I had another guy on my episode, several episodes. His name was Steve Springer. He
Oh
played
yeah.
Major League Baseball. Let me
Oh yeah.
check. He was on here with me. Let me just share this to you. I got to share this with the audience. And go back to the episode. I don't know what episode it was. Steve Springer,
Hmm.
and he said this to me during it. He said, "Listen," he said, "Coach, tell your story," and he kept every other question he kept saying, "Tell your story, tell your story, tell your story," and I'm like, it's just like God, you know, go win souls, go win souls, go because your story is going to impact. You said it,
Yeah.
impact somebody else for the next generation. And I started thinking about that when you were talking. I'm like, man, doggone Steve Springer,
Yeah. No,
doggone
I've
Steve
and
Springer.
hey, Steve's helped me in my career. I mean, I used to, listen to his audio tapes and just being confident as a hitter, and he knows his stuff,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think just the mental side and the approach of everything, he's a great guy to listen to.
Yeah, Steve Springer is awesome. I love Steve Springer. I mean, I've heard of him, but I never had a chance to talk to him. And
Oh yeah.
Jeremy, when I talked to him, bro, he took over the podcast. He just took it over. I just, I just let him go. I let him go. I like fly because
Yeah.
he was not that he was just empowering the listeners, but he was empowering me.
Hmm.
Because when you're a coach and you're a trainer and you're always encouraging people, I need someone to pour into me. And he poured it, man. He was
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm like, I can't stop this guy. He just kept bringing more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And he's like, he told me, you need to put your video together. He put he went off. And I was like, you know what? He's right. He's right.
Yeah.
He's right. And he said, nobody knows your story until you go tell your story.
That's right.
So Steve Springer, I'll give a shout out to Steve Springer because he's a very very powerful man. He did some great things on my podcast, and because a lot of things you're saying is connecting with him. So it's
Right.
like I can see the correlation, the connection, and it's like okay now. So let's talk about. I mean, I know we're on a tangent. We're having a great time, and I just want to we're off, but I want to talk about your college career. Now,
Hmm.
we know that you guys set the foundation at Bakersfield. My question to you is, being a catcher, was there any other position that you tried to play besides a catcher? Why not the infield or because you set a record. You set a record
Hmm.
as far as catcher batting average on base percentage. That normally doesn't happen for a catcher. Which people that don't know listen, play baseball. That doesn't happen for catchers most cases. So, how did that make you feel?
It was great. It was a lot of work. I set the record my sophomore year, so I hit it 400, and then my on base percentage I believe was a little over five, and I had to be a pest up there, man. I had to compete, and it was one of those things that I remember I was at the last game of the season where at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. My average I think was like 398. So I was hitting third. My the leadoff hitter Brandon Bourne was hitting I think he was 399. We were like neck and neck. And so we'd always, how many hits are you gonna get today? And I'll be like, I'm gonna get three. He goes, all right, I'm gonna get four. We'd always just compete with each other, and it just became that easy. It was really weird. But I remember I needed to get two hits
Mm-hmm.
that day to get 400.
Two
So
hits.
my first hit, I remember I get a base hit, so I'm like, all right, there's one, and then I get hit, and then I get walked, and I'm just like, oh man. And I remember I'm hitting right-handed because I was a switch hitter as well, and I remember I was facing a lefty, and he hangs first pitch changeup, and it just floated up there, and I smoke a double in the right center field gap, and right when I hit second, I just like put my head down because you don't want to think about it, you don't want to think about records, you don't want to think
Right.
about, but like you're that close, and that it's a season, with the average, like it's going up and down, up and down, up and down. Mentally it can be very just
Draining.
exhausting.
Yeah.
And so when I finally did it, and I found out I hit my 400th part, like it was just I can breathe, But my dad, he before every season we would always like, all right, what are your goals? What are you gonna do? And I would tell him, all right, like my goal is, I'm gonna hit 350 this year, and he goes, no, you're going 400. So this was the first time I actually, I hit my goal,
Okay.
and so it was just, my dad always made me, think more. So then
Right.
if I just missed
Correct.
it
Right.
was outstanding.
Correct. Correct. I like that. I
And
like
so that was my mentality, and that's why I get on these kids. Hey, how many hits are you gonna get tomorrow? I was like, I don't know, two. I'm like, no, you get three tomorrow.
that.
He goes, all
That's
right,
right.
yeah, I'll get three.
I like
It's just
that.
that confidence factor going into it.
Right. And
But
you talked about hitting. I want to ask you a
yes,
question. I don't want to lose this point of thought. You talk about hitting, and for the people that don't know who this is Jeremy Rodriguez. He has a J Rod hitting J Rod hitting academy in
it's
L.A.
baseball. Yeah.
Baseball Academy, J Rod Baseball Academy up in L.A. So go ahead and give him a shout out there. Go ahead and give him a look. Also, let's talk about hitting real quick since you talked about that. Could you give the listeners a couple tips about what is some basic things that they can do for hitting? I know you can't show them, but you can tell them. Give them three things about hitting that can improve their hitting.
So I think right away is the mental side, the confidence. Going up to the plate with confidence. I think Steve Springer, he talks about that a lot. That's a big part of it. And I think realistically, it doesn't matter how pretty or how good your swing is. If you're going up there with no confidence, you have no chance. So I think that's a big one with the mental side. Being aggressive, jump on that first fastball you see, um, because realistically, a lot of hitters get in trouble when they start getting passive. They start taking too much, or they get timid. It's like, hey man, first pitch, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, and let them know it's okay to strike out. It's okay to fail. I tell a lot of my kids, like, hey man, especially that are like, you can tell like the mental side, they're struggling a little bit. I always tell them, hey, strike out four times from your mom. Strike out four times. Do it. I dare you. And they're like, what? Compared to like, the parents are like, they're like, what? Well, yeah, strike out four times. See what happens. A lot of them will go 3 for 3 or 2 for 3. And it's like, what happened? He goes, well, I just lost the pressure of striking out, because a lot of people are thinking, hey, strike out. Like, I can't strike out. I can't do this. I'm like, no. The I can't is that negative mindset.
Then you
That,
will do it. And you will do it.
right, correct. And I think the final part is the foundation, learning how to use your body the right way, making sure that that lower half is engaged. You look at a lot of these major league hitters, man. They're big in size, but they know how to use their
The
body,
body.
and stay connected in every way.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these young hitters, I think they try to just take the wiffle ball swings and muscle it up from the upper body, but if they can
That's right.
control their lower half the right way and hold that balance, they'll be in a really good spot.
Right. So you said confidence, body, understanding your body, and what was the third one you said?
Uh, Confident body. I think it was like the game plan, like being aggressive.
Aggressive. And I mean, I've said that because I just got finished talking about this on my YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I just talked about this on my YouTube channel, and I talked about exactly what you talked about. I talked about using your body because a lot of guys think they're gonna be like Hercules on the top and
yeah,
have toothpick legs. I'm like, dude, you're not balanced. I mean, there's no
yep,
balance. I mean, you get a guy that's throwing some gas, you're not gonna hit it. It's just not gonna happen. Because I know there's guys that really believe in the exit velo and all this.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, okay, all right, nothing against. I'm not against all that stuff because we didn't. I didn't grow up with all that stuff, and
Right.
not,
Yeah.
and I'm not against it. But I owe this to another player that played pro ball. His name is Brandon. I can't remember where he's at, but he played pro ball as well in the MLB as well for a short period of time, if I'm not mistaken. He said the same exact thing. He said we get so caught up in the analytics and the launch angle and exit velo, we forget to do the basics. We just forget the basics and have fun doing it. We're
Yeah.
trying to get our swing up, and we're dropping our shoulder. I mean, it's just, and we have no balance. It just looks like, that little when we're kids, that thing, the seesaw. We look like a
Yeah.
seesaw going up and down. And I said that because I just listened to a podcast yesterday, and I listened to other people talk just to see where I'm at, to make sure I'm up on my game when I'm giving
Yeah.
information. And then I started listening. I'm like, we're all speaking the same language. We're all speaking the same. But the ones that aren't speaking the same are taking their money. Goes back to what we talked about travel ball. I like that what you said.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm like, you have to know that this guy cares about me, first of all. Not just about your baseball, but he cares about you as a person. Because when he
Right.
cares about you as a person, he's going to do what it takes for you. But, with that being said, I'm kind of off on a tangent because I'm having fun with this.
No, man, it's you're speaking the truth.
I mean, because I'm like, it's just. I mean, I talk to people all the time on the show, and you sound like Steve Springer Jr.
Hey, I've listened to his tapes many times,
I'm
so
like, you sound just like him. Like, this guy sounds like Steve. I'm gonna call Steve up and say, "Hey, Steve, you know
yeah.
somebody named Jeremy? Jeremy
Hey,
who?"
he gave me a CD. He gave me a CD
So
once.
I just had to throw that out there. But I think you're doing a great job. I mean, seen a few of your videos, and I continue to keep doing great success. I've got a few questions I want to ask you. Who is your Mount Everest players? If you had four guys, your Mount Everest baseball players of all time, dead or alive?
Oof.
I know one of them, but I mean, I can look in the back of the back,
Yeah.
but I don't know
Yeah.
your
You
four. If
know,
you had four Mount Everest baseball players of all time,
are we
yours,
talking about like pitching and all that,
any
or
whoever,
okay?
you can throw an extra one in there for a pitcher if you want.
Okay, I'll throw. Oof. Let's go. Barry,
Number one,
Willie,
Barry,
um, and Nolan
Willie,
Ryan.
Willie. That's man. This guy's got a great list.
I think
Nolan
God,
Ryan,
Mantl's up there,
Mano,
and I'm gonna put Reggie Smith, my mentor. He's gonna go up there with me.
Reggie Smith. You got a good list. But most kids are not going to agree with this, right? Because
Well,
first of all,
because they're not gonna know who they are.
correct.
You're like, hey, who's Willie Mays? Like,
Yeah, and Barry Bonds, he's old. That's a first word to come. Like, what do
I
you mean
know, I
he's
know.
old? And Nolan Ryan, I'm like, dude, you didn't do your homework.
Well, it's funny because a lot of these kids, I'll be like, "Hey, man, you remember Mark McGuire?" They're like, "Who?" And then I'm like, "Whoa." When I hear that, I'm like, "Oh man, I'm in a different world right now." Like, it's just, but
You're
you
right.
gotta teach them the history.
That's right, and it's interesting. I mean, I appreciate the new guys. I appreciate the guys what they're doing, but it had to be someone before you come over. In other words, there had to
Yeah,
be a successor for you to come in and take over the like we talked about earlier. But the next thing is those are your Mount Everest and what would be one of the things you've learned from coming from high school to college to pro? A couple good positive things you've learned from coming from each level of playing baseball. What would you say?
be okay to fail.
Mm,
Understanding it's okay to
mm,
fail,
be okay.
and understanding failure is a positive
Mm,
as long as you grow with it. And I think a lot of young kids, they look at failure as the biggest negative, and they failed their family, they failed them, and blah blah blah. I'm like, no, no, no. Like, this is good. With my kids, man, I want them. I want to hear the bad stuff. I want to hear you striking. I want to hear. Okay, then we can figure out the why.
right. Mm-hmm.
Understanding the why and grabbing that root is how you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna keep getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great story. Dustin May, he was mowing through the minor leagues, and I remember we're in AAA and we're in Nashville, and Gomes and Andrew Friedman are in their office, and we're like, "Hey man, when are you gonna call Dustin up? Like, he's ready." He goes, "He
Mm-hmm.
hasn't failed yet. We're waiting for him to
Oh,
fail
okay.
because we don't want him to fail in the big leagues for the
Mm.
first time. We want him to fail in the minor leagues." Well, damn, that game in Nashville, he sucked, and it was just like, oh man, it's like he hurt everyone, but it was the bounce back. You know, how he got over it, how he prepared. And I mean, a couple weeks later, boom, he gets called up. And that's where I love, you know, expressing like, I want you to fail. It's okay. You know, it's okay to fail. And as long as you grow and you understand, like, you know, this is a part of the grind that
Correct.
everyone talks about. You know, another thing is, you know, I love to express is, you know, don't ever be satisfied either. You know, because realistically, a lot of these kids, you know, they, I hit 30 balls, you know, in my backyard, or I hit, you know, for 30 minutes. I'm like, I'm gonna tell you right now, you wanna go where you say you wanna go. It's not good enough. You know, when I was in the Dominican, my eyes opened. Those guys were up at 5 a.m. in the cage. Like, I had to wake up that early just to open that damn cage so these guys can hit. They were hungry. You know, they were hungry, man. They wanted to leave that island. So think about it. If it was 5 a.m. in the DR, that was 2 a.m. in California. You know what I mean? And so it's like, these guys are way ahead of you. Right. And they're not even going to school. So you think you're doing enough, but reality, you're not. That's and so I try to just, you know, humble these kids a little bit. I'm like, hey, I love the work that you're doing, but guess what? There's always a little bit more that you can do. You know, don't forget these things, and have a list. Because sometimes, like, you know, these kids, like, there's so much going through their heads. Like, hey, put something on the board in your room. All right, hit, throw, stretch, 100 push-ups a day or whatever. You know, something simple like that. So you have your checklist. Oh, I got to do my 100. You know, and I think that will give them that foundation. So as they get older and start really getting into their body, it's going to be a lot easier for them.
Right. Man, Jeremy, that's powerful. I'm here listening to this like you're preaching. You realize you're just really preaching. You said, I'm going to paraphrase it. You said, it's okay to fail. That was the very first thing you said. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said, failure is something, it's okay if you grow.
Yeah.
And then you said, don't ever be satisfied. I asked for 2. You gave me 3. You gave me a bonus, but
I probably have
cool.
Another one too. But
I'm cool with it. I'm good with it. I'm like, I'm eating this up because I start thinking about everything you're saying. You're like, don't ever be satisfied. That's the one I think about the most. Don't ever be satisfied. And then you talked about, basically, you're talking about a vision board. Write things on the board and look at it. Because basically, you just said, you basically paraphrase the Bible. Write a vision, make it plain so people can see it. You know, plant a seed. Seed takes time to grow. It ain't going to happen overnight. It won't happen overnight. It'll take time. And it looks like you're failing, but you're not failing. And then you talked about the Dominicans. Oh, man, I love when you talk about that. Because I'm like, that's a great example. Great example. Like, listen, you think you're doing something, you're not doing nothing. And,
you know, I heard my dad all the time talk about it because, you know, he's, you know, from Cuba. And he's, hey, man, you know, this is what they did in Cuba, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay. You know, like, but then, no, but like, yeah, and I'm like, all right, I get it. Like, and then when I lived in the Dominican and saw it openly, I was like, whoa. I would call my dad all the time, Dad, like, this is what they do it this way. And it's like, holy, he's like, Bobby, I told you, I wasn't lying to you. And I was like, yeah, you know, like, these guys there's a different hunger because they're coming from nothing and they're trying to survive. And that's what these kids don't understand is that survival mode. You know, things have been, you know, not handed to them, but, you know, these kids have good lives. And so once they find a way to get in that survival mode, dude, that something just elevates their game, elevates their mindset, elevates their hunger. And you see, like, I have a couple kids, I'm like, oh, man, you're a survivor, and I love it. You're surviving right now. And that's, you know, like, again, you can't take that away from someone.
No, you can't.
You know, and you can't take that. And once someone has that,
it's in them. It's in them.
It
ain't going.
And you already know they're going to be successful in whatever they do.
Whatever they do, and it's and you know, I guess you said survival mode. I'm like, you know, everyone has a definition for survival mode in their own different way.
Right.
Because the United States survival mode is totally different from Cuba, Venezuela, and Dominicans. And I'm not saying that they all have basic the same, but it's the inside. It's how bad do you really want it. And it's something you said, you know, throughout this whole episode. It's been great. I mean, you've said you got so many fruitful nuggets. I got notes all over. I got all these notes. I'm writing everything down, even though I have the access to listen to it again. But it's just different when you write it down, because when you write it down, your mind is working and you're thinking. You're listening, but you're thinking at the same time. You know, I know we got. I mean, I'm going at it, man. I didn't even ask what time we can stop. We're just going.
Yeah.
I'm just flowing. I'm like, we're flowing over here. I got one. I got a couple more questions. Let me ask you this next
Okay.
question. For the listeners that don't know this, haven't seen you play, could you give us a play of the day from anybody you played with or something you've experienced that ESPN has not recorded that you can share with us? A play that you did or that was just a highlight. You can give us two if you want. A highlight, it can be played in the bigs or whatever, minor league. It doesn't really matter. Just share it with us. Play of the day.
Um,
If you got two, that's cool.
yeah, I got two. So, uh, my first one was in college. My first home run. It was actually on nationally televised, and it was on Mother's Day.
Okay.
And my mom was, called me before the game. Hey, Bobby, and I called her Happy Mother's Day. And she was, hey, hit a home run for me. I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah. We're in University of Nebraska, and my first at bat, I hit a home run, and it was right over the hi mom sign that the bullpen kind of put
Oh.
and so I'm like, running the bases. I'm like, oh my god, I just hit a home run on Mother's Day, like, and my dad was like, yeah, your mom was crying and all that stuff. So that was probably a surreal moment. And then when Puig just came to the States and he just signed with the Dodgers, he was in the Cal League and I was there. And
Okay.
so I was telling him like, oh yeah, like, I'm Cuban too, but like, he's, oh okay, yeah, nice, like, kind of, I was like, all right, like,
Right.
and it's funny now. I have a great relationship with Puig. We mess around with each other all the time. Like, he's just a big kid, and I remember he gets on first, and I point at him and I go take it, like I dare you. And I remember I threw him out, and I walked off the field before the infielder even caught it. And Puig gets up and takes his head and looks at me, and I just go like this, and he just started. He put his head down, and after that, it was respect. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And it was respect because he was, okay, I'm from America, but I have that Cuban blood.
Right.
And so right when he saw that and that attitude that I showed, it was like, all right, you're definitely Cuban.
Wow.
So, and then when I started
Wow.
coaching with the Dodgers, I got to mess around with him a little bit too. He goes, it's not on video, it's not on video. And I got the video, I found the video, and I sent it to him. He goes, all right, fine, whatever.
Well, that's a play of the day right there. That's
Yeah.
two play of the day. That was a great play. But Jeremy, tell the people who is Puig. They don't know who Puig is because
Yeah,
they're like, who is Puig?
Yasiel Puig. He was with the Dodgers. God, I'd say for probably 6 to 8 years,
8 years, 6 years,
maybe
something like
maybe a good chunk. And
He was was he a refugee from Cuba?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, he was the big name out of Cuba. I think before Chapman. It was
Right.
around that same time.
Right.
Outfielder, plus arm, plus speed. Can hit for power, hit for average. Just it was everything. And I think the biggest thing with Puig was obviously just controlling the stallion. He was a wild horse.
The emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's what a lot of fans loved
Right.
and
Right.
about him was the passion that he showed on the field.
Yeah.
That's something that baseball needs, and
Yeah.
obviously I think with him he just needs to control a little bit, but he's a great player, great guy, and hopefully to keep watching him play.
Yeah. He's more like a crock pot.
Yeah.
A crock pot.
Exactly.
You turn. Hey, the more you simmer him down, he's going. He's building up. So when he
Oh,
comes
yeah.
out, you better get ready. That's good stuff, man. And I mean, we've been going on strong for an hour, man. This has been a great show. We talked about survival mode. We talked about don't ever be satisfied. Talked about three things: confidence and being level when you're hitting. Your body, completely using your whole body and being aggressive. Also, we talked about it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
I'm just telling the people that missed the show, you might want to listen to this again. You might want to listen to this again because this is like there's a lot of powerful information that's been given. You gave me a lot more than I expected. I got to be honest with you. You gave me a whole lot more than I expected. I thought we were gonna talk more about your J Rod baseball, which I'm gonna end it off with that. Give you a few more shouts out for that. But you've got a lot of information. Coming from 2011 draft with Jarrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, Anthony Rendon, Francisco Lindor, Colton Wong, and many, many more. And you're only 5'5". Let's just put that out there.
Oh yeah.
The bottom line is, he's like David in the Bible. You don't care who Goliath is, you're gonna get knocked down. The bottom line, you got that. You have that survival mode inside of you. And it's the DNA of survival mode. And I just want to say, man, continue to keep up the good work. I mean, it has been it's been a blessing. I mean, the bottom line is you basically were a walking Bible, but you just paraphrase it in basic terms so people can understand it. Because I mean, everything you were saying, I'm thinking about planting seeds. You're like planting seeds. You said don't quit. That talks about faith. You gotta have faith. You
Yeah.
can't. Faith is things you don't see. You gotta keep moving forward. You talk about don't be satisfied. Oh, I love that part. Don't be satisfied. I mean, I love that like anything. Just don't be satisfied because what happens? You get complacent. And when you get
Yeah.
complacent, you get lazy. And when you get lazy, you're stagnant. You're not moving, And
Right.
I believe that our body is progressive. We keep moving, and you don't have to do a whole lot, but progressing. That's just part of life. The survival mode. But the last thing I want to ask you is let's talk about. I have 5 minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about your J Rod Baseball Academy. What did you think about how did this come apart and you want to do a J Rod Academy?
So I did. I mean, it was Reggie Smith had his RSA Academy, and it was something that I've always looked on. I was like, man, this would be awesome to do, and just teach coaches, teach kids, and you become your own boss, and But for me, it was like my ultimate goal is be a major league player or a major league coach,
Correct.
and COVID happened, and I always did private training on the side in the off season just to keep active and keep sharing the knowledge, keep teaching, and COVID happened, and I just started doing this more and more. And before I was like, I'll interview with some teams, but let's just see what happens, And it just kept getting bigger and kept getting bigger, and so I just, I started growing it more, and I keep continuing to grow. And I think having that growth mindset, as a coach, just like you would as a player, is a big aspect of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, this year, this is my year to keep growing with my, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel and start growing. For me, it's coaching coaches, because I feel like that's the next way to get to this new generation is
Yeah.
having good quality coaches behind them.
Amen.
Especially the little league and travel ball, and
Yeah.
it's making sure they understand the right way to preach and the right way to coach and the right way to really touch these kids and the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. And could you give the audience a little bit about what are some special things that you do at your academy? So when people look you up, what are some things you specialize in?
So I mean, I do everything.
Everything.
I was luckily, I hitting, catching, infield, outfield, pitching, softball hitting, softball catching. The only thing I don't do is softball pitching.
Okay.
That's the one thing I still don't know how to teach.
Okay.
But I'm open to it. And, for me, I think I was blessed when I was coaching with the Padres and Dodgers. They knew I could teach hitting. They knew I could teach catching. They were like, all right, how do we open you up more? How do we add more tools to your toolbox? And so I was an infield coach in AAA. I was an outfield coach in
Okay.
AA. And, when I was a manager, I worked with the infielders and the outfielders, and I rarely worked on catching. So I got to learn and grow overall as a coach. So that, I was blessed to be able to teach everything, and have my toolbox, not all the way full, but,
Right. Right.
I keep adding tools to it.
Okay. Okay. That's good. I mean, could you give the audience your channels, your social media channels, so they can reach out to you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll definitely. It's in the mix right now. So I'm
Okay.
starting to open it up right now. The name right now is Good Take with J Rod. People they hear me say that a lot, and because even good takes, I mean that's a good rep, and so for me that can go in so many aspects, especially in the YouTube channel and
Yeah.
podcasts and all that stuff. So
That's great.
that's what we're starting off when we have the name already set out, and
Good.
have some meetings coming up just to kind of get the ball rolling.
Thank you. Hey, this is J Rod's Baseball Academy, the very own Jeremy Rodriguez. This is episode 52, and I'm getting ready to close it out. But before I close it out, I wanted to ask you one last question. The question would be this. Now, I know baseball goes in innings, but we're going to act like it's not baseball, but it is baseball. You have 30 minutes left. 30 minutes. And who would you ask or speak to that you wanted to talk to you've never spoke to in your life that can help you in coaching and in baseball? It can be dead or alive. Someone that played baseball. Who would you like to talk to or ask if he came back to talk to you? Who would it be, and what would you say to him, and why?
Oof.
That's a good question.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. probably have to be, I'd say Mickey Mantle.
Okay.
I think with Mantle, similar to Puig, like had the tools, had everything, um, understanding like his struggle and what he can express. And I know he changed his life tremendously at the end of his career, but just to hear a different aspect and different point of view, um, and being a Yankee great and having so much behind him, I think me being a former switch hitter as well. Um, yeah, man, there's a lot of other people out there too that I'd want to talk to, but I think Mantle, just because he was an idol as well for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, with the bat. So yeah, that
Yeah.
would probably be it.
Mickey Mantle. I just thought you'd give us a Dodger.
That's it.
I thought you'd give us a Dodger. You could give us a Dodger. Like, if you ask me that question, I'm gonna go. I'm not even gonna have to hesitate. There's only two people that I would probably say if it had me. I mean, there's many. There's many. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. There's many, but the two that I would say that impact me the most as a baseball player and as an athlete would be Barry Bonds. And if you ever talk to Barry, tell him he got a very diehard. You got a diehard guy in Miami, Florida, and Bo Jackson.
Okay.
Those would be the two because Bo Jackson and Barry. This is like those are just studs.
So the one also was Jackie Robinson. That was
Oh
another
yeah,
one.
that's
I
right.
know that was the other
Jackie.
one. When you
Yeah,
said
yeah, yeah,
Dodger, I'm
yeah.
like, well, it's gonna be Jackie
This had to
because
be Jackie.
I spent some time talking with Maury Wills, and we're in the locker room. We're just talking, and man, Maury with his stories, boy, and he's talking about Jackie, and I'm just like, oh my god, this guy's talking about Jackie Robinson, the stories he has with him, and it's just like
Like I
you
need
get
to
the
record
chills,
it.
man.
Can you just record it?
Yeah,
Can I
exactly.
record it?
But
Let's
even
say it again.
Even Lasorda, sharing the stories, and it's like that's what I miss the most. I think about professional baseball is the locker room and the stories and everything
Yeah.
that kind of goes, behind it.
Man, just,
But that's what's, Reggie always told me like knowledge is something that it's not kept. It's supposed to be shared. And God gives you all this opportunity, all this knowledge, not to hold it in, but to express it and to help others
I like that.
with that. And so for me, it's a gift, and I want to, keep sharing that gift.
I like that. I'm writing it. And listen, I'm writing it down again. Knowledge is what you share. Is what you share. I mean, it's just that's powerful. I mean, basically, it goes back to the Bible again. And
Yeah.
all that getting understanding. Wisdom is the principal thing, and knowledge is something that we need to use and apply it, in everyday life because faith without works is dead. But Jeremy, go ahead and give us a closing remarks, some closing remarks if you would, and then I'm going to close it out for the some encouraging words for the listeners, if you don't mind.
No, yeah. No, Coach, I mean, this is a great podcast. I mean, just not just talking about baseball or the mindset or life, expressing God's word, I think is something that you don't hear a lot of.
No,
And
thanks,
there's so much. I mean, you just having the scriptures out there. I mean, that like I was like, man, you already had that ready, like.
man.
But it's so true because it's the Bible it's just it's life. It's teachings
right.
of life, and I think you don't realize until you go through these life obstacles, and then it's like, whoa, now I know what that meant, or now
Yeah.
I know what that understands. And so for me, like you said, man, this was over an hour, and I'm looking at the time like, holy cow! But
It went by
it sometimes
fast.
when you're feeling passionate about something, and the energy and the vibe, I mean, it's true. And so I love this podcast, and
Thanks,
I'm
man.
excited to get back on it again and talk
Thanks,
more.
man.
Even though the things that we missed, because
Yeah, we missed
we'll get off, and I'm like,
it.
oh man, I could have talked more about this, and we could talk more about that. But
Thanks, man.
that's I think when you have someone that has the right mindset and the same goal and
Yeah,
the same faith, I think
that's
I
great.
mean you can talk for days.
Man, I
So I
appreciate
appreciate
that,
you. I
man.
really appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a true privilege.
Man, that's cool, man. I appreciate that. I don't get that. I've been this,
Yeah.
I've done 50 of these things, and you're probably the first one to brought up the faith part. Besides Steve Springer,
Yep.
he's a believer too. But I like that because it's good to be encouraged. Encouragement needs to be encouraged, and I appreciate that because people don't know that until we start talking, and they're like,
Right.
Did he just bring up the scripture?
Oh yeah.
Did he
Oh
just
yeah.
bring that up?
I
It's
love.
like,
I trust me, man. I love that. I truly
yeah,
do.
because I'm like, okay, it's a platform, you got to, I'm using God's glory, what he's done for me. And I mean,
Yep.
it's not about me, it's about him expressing what's inside of me to help other people. But you said something else was very good before I close out. And you said I'm paraphrasing, knowledge is no good if you can't share it with someone to apply it in their life.
Yep.
I got that right there. I wrote it down.
Yep. Yep.
It does you no good. I mean, like Jeremy, like there's people that have all this wisdom and knowledge about how to get wealth and how to do this and how to do
Yep.
this, and you sitting there scratching your head like, why are you not sharing this? Because
Yep.
they're selfish. It's just a
Yep.
selfish mindset.
Yep.
Oh, it's all about me. But when you have the great I am inside of you and he lives inside of you, it has to come out because he's going to say, listen, it's not about me, it's about him. And
That's
so
right.
I had to
That's
throw that
right.
in there
Amen,
because
brother.
it's like this is not cool. So I'm glad that I've graduated from that stage. I'm not I'm not there anymore. Praise God for that. But it has been a great episode 52 with the very own Jeremy Rodriguez. If you guys are anywhere in the LA area, I challenge you. I'm gonna say it again. I challenge you to go to J Rod Baseball Academy if you really want to get to the next level, not just in baseball but in life. Because I'm quite sure he'll give you nothing but the truth and nothing but the truth. So help you God. He's going to give you baseball knowledge and also life knowledge. But this is my closing remark, Jeremy. I close it out and I have my old saying every time I close out. I ask the audience these three questions. I'm sorry, one question combined to one. It's like the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, guys, let me ask you a question. Where are you being led? Jeremy Rodriguez came on the show today. We had a blast from the past. He talked about so many good things, survival mode, don't ever be satisfied. He talked about confidence, using your whole body, being aggressive first pitch. It's okay to fail. Lord, I love that one. It's okay to fail. With that being said, my question is, where are you being led, people? The people that are listening to this show every week, where are you being led? And you said, Coach, why do you ask me? Either you're going north, south, east, or west. You can only go. Which direction are you going? So the question is this, Jeremy, which I ask them all the time, and where are you being led? L stands for listen. The L stands for listen. Listen to everything that he said today and myself, and I guarantee you, you will have a better life. But also
Hmm.
remember this: when you're listening, the mouth is closed. I'm pretty blunt. Just close your mouth. Put these ears on, because God says faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. Which God also said this, which I'm saying this. The E stands for LE. L. What does the E stand for, Coach? I'm glad you asked. If you're listening, you should execute what you just heard. Don't ever be satisfied. Faith comes by hearing, but also when you have faith, it has to have legs to it. You got to walk it out. Execute what you just heard. Which leads me to the last letter, LED. LED. And it stands for D. God said he created us upon this earth to dominate. So if you listen, you execute, and I can guarantee you'll dominate everything that God puts you in your path for you to do. This is Coach Laurie, very own Seville Laurie. It's been a great privilege to have the very own Jeremy Rodriguez, J Rod Baseball Academy in LA. Thank you, Jeremy. It's been a blessing, man. Have a great and prosperous day. Alrighty, take care, man.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome. Bye.
Good, Kyle. How are you doing? California. Uh, Tarzana, like Los Angeles. Yeah, Woodland Hills area. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I saw an ad on Instagram, and just was trying to you know pick your brain a little bit and see the next step for me. Like my year, this year for me is growth, and I'm looking to grow, and I'm looking to keep getting bigger. And I think the social media realm, like I haven't really been much into it. Um, but one of my players, he's a party animal player, so yeah, so he's he would come back, and we would do skits and stuff like that. Something I really enjoyed doing. Um, so I think for me, I'm like tapped out right now. Like there's not enough hours for me to work. I keep raising my rates even higher and higher, and I'm like, dude, is this like outrageous? Like, but people are still coming, which is a blessing, and I'm honored, for that. And so now it's like, okay, the next step I think is being able to probably get my own facility. I have coaches under me. I have my marketing team with me. It's now I think it's creating more space. Yeah, yeah. I have my own, or I lease a cage out of their facility, and but there's actually their lease is up in June, and there might be a possibility that I take over, which that would be the biggest blessing if that happened, just because my name, my reputation, it's there, and now it's like okay, like what else, you know, how else can I do it? So like again, I have a writer from HBO who's starting my YouTube channel. She already has the camera crew. She already has the editing team. She has everything. So we're having a couple meetings this coming month about it. So that's that was probably the next step of me kind of growing into the social media world a little bit, and then obviously grabbing more coaches that I have with me, and just I'm waiting for that space to open.